Manchu, Manchu, a registered trademark AAU micro A degree AA manju gisun, is a severely endangered Tungusic language spoken in northeast China. It was the native language of the Manchus and one of the official languages of the Qing Dynasty. Most Manchus now speak Mandarin Chinese, and there are fewer than 70 native and semi-speakers of Manchu out of a total of nearly 10 million ethnic Manchus. Although the Xibe language, with 40,000 speakers, is in almost every respect identical to Manchu, Xibe speakers, who live in far western Xinjiang, are ethnically distinct from Manchus. Manchu language sources have two main uses for historians of China, especially for the Qing Dynasty. They supply information that is unavailable in Chinese and, when both Manchu and Chinese versions of a given text exist, they provide controls for understanding the Chinese. Like most originally Central Asian languages such as Turkic, Mongolian, and Japanese, Manchu is an agglutinative language that demonstrates limited vowel harmony. It has been demonstrated that it is derived mainly from the Jurchen language, though there are many loanwords from Mongolian and Chinese. Its script is vertically written and taken from the Mongolian alphabet. Although Manchu does not have the kind of grammatical gender that many Indo-European languages do, some gender-related words in Manchu are distinguished by different stem vowels. In such cases, as are sometimes used to indicate masculine ones, as in ama father, and es are sometimes used to indicate feminine ones, as in en mother. Writing system: the Manchu language uses the Manchu script, which was derived from the traditional Mongol script, which in turn is based on the vertically written pre-Islamic Uyghur script. Manchu is usually romanized according to the system devised by Paul Georg von Marr-Paragraph-Lendorf in his Manchu grammar. Its ancestor, Jurchen, used the Jurchen script, which is derived from the Khitan script, which in turn was derived from Han characters. There is no relation between the Jurchen script and the Manchu script. Chinese characters can also be used to transliterate Manchu. All the Manchu vowels, and the syllables commencing with a consonant, are represented by single Chinese characters, as are also the syllables terminating in I, N, and G, and O. But those ending in R, K, S, T, P, I, M, are expressed by the union of the sounds of two characters, there being no Mandarin syllables terminating with these consonants. Thus the Manchu syllable M is expressed by the Chinese characters mu, and the word Manchu is, in the Imperial Manchu Dictionary, spelt in the following manner: a registered trademark permil mcaana Euroman. A Euro Chu Aec Florenza Wachu. A Euro Manchu. Teaching: Mongols learnt their script as a syllabary, dividing the syllables into 12 different classes, based on the final phonemes of the syllables, all of which ended in vowels. The Manchus followed the same syllabic method when learning Manchu script, also with syllables divided into 12 different classes based on the finals phonemes of the syllables. Today, the opinion on whether it is alphabet or syllabic in nature is still split between different experts. In China, it is considered syllabic, and Manchu is still taught in this manner. The alphabetic approach is used mainly by foreigners who want to learn the language. Studying Manchu script as a syllabary takes a longer time. Despite the alphabetic nature of its script, Manchu was not taught phoneme by phoneme per letter like Western languages are. Rather, Manchu children were taught to memorize all the syllables in the Manchu language separately as they learned to write, like Chinese characters. Manchus, when learning, instead of saying I, Allah, I, O lo, and Si, were taught at once to say La, Lo, and Si. Many more syllables than are contained in their syllabary might have been formed with their letters, but they were not accustomed to arrange them otherwise than as they there stand. They made, for instance, no such use of the consonants I, M, N, and R, as Westerners do when they called them liquid. Hence if the Manchu letters S, M, A, R, T, be joined in that order as a Manchu would not able to pronounce them as English-speaking people pronounce the word smart. Names: the Qing Dynasty referred to the Manchu language in various Chinese titles such as Qingyi, or Qingyi and Guoyuanyi, which was used by previous non-Han dynasties to refer to their languages. The national was also applied to the Manchu writing as in Gaonao in addition to Guoyuanli. In the Manchu language version of the Treaty of Nerchinsk, the term Chinese language referred to all three Chinese, Manchu, and Mongol languages, not just one language. Guoyu now refers to Standard Chinese. History and significance. In 1635 Hongtaiji renamed the Jurchen people and Jurchen language as Manchu. Manchu began as a primary language of the Qing Dynasty imperial court, but as Manchu officials became increasingly Sinicized, many started losing the language. Trying to preserve the Manchu identity, the imperial government instituted Manchu language classes and examinations for the bannermen, offering rewards to those who excelled in the language. Chinese classics and fiction were translated into Manchu, and a body of Manchu literature accumulated. As the Yunzheng emperor explained, if some special encouragement is not offered, the ancestral language will not be passed on and learned. Still, the use of the language among the bannermen was in decline throughout the 1700s. Historical records report that as early as 1776, the Qianlong emperor was shocked to see a high Manchu official, Guoamin, not understand what the emperor was telling him in Manchu, despite coming from the Manchu stronghold of Xinjiang. By the 19th century even the imperial court had lost fluency in the language. The Jiaqing emperor complained about his officials being good neither at understanding nor writing Manchu. By the end of the 19th century the language was so moribund that even at the office of the Shengjing general, the only documents written in Manchu would be the memorials wishing the emperor long life. At the same time period, the archives of the Hulan Banner detachment in Heilongjiang show that only 1% of the bannermen could read Manchu, and no more than 0.2% could speak it. Nonetheless, as late as 1906 1907 Qing education and military officials insisted that schools teach Manchu language, and that the officials testing soldiers' marksmanship continue to conduct an oral examination in Manchu. The use of the language for the official documents declined throughout the Qing history as well. Especially at the beginning of the dynasty, some documents on sensitive political and military issues were submitted in Manchu but not in Chinese. Later on, some imperial records in Manchu continued to be produced until the last years of the dynasty, which was overthrown in 1912. A large number of Manchu documents remain in the archives, important for the study of Qing-era China. Today, written Manchu can still be seen on architecture inside the Forbidden City, whose historical signs are written in both Chinese and Manchu. Another limited use of the language was for voice commands in the Qing army, attested as late as 1878. Studies of Manchu in Qing China the Qianlong Emperor commissioned projects such as new Manchu dictionaries, both monolingual and multilingual like the Pentaglet. Among his directives were to eliminate directly borrowed loanwords from Chinese and replace them with calque translations which were put into new Manchu dictionaries. This showed in the titles of Manchu translations of Chinese works during his reign, which were direct translations contrasted with Manchu books translated during the Kangxi Emperor's reign, which were Manchu transliterations of the Chinese characters. The Pentaglet was based on the Yuzi city Qing Wenjin 3/4 AEEE, with Uyghur added as fifth language. The four-language version of the dictionary with Tibetan was in turn based on an earlier three-language version with Manchu, Mongolian, and Chinese called the A3/4 ECE unregistered trademark a 1/4 telephone, a Permil AAI3DE, which was in turn based on the A3/4 a centi in Manchu and Chinese, which used both Manchu script to transcribe Chinese words and Chinese characters to transcribe Manchu words with Fanqi. European scholarship a number of European scholars in the 18th century, frustrated by the difficulties in reading Chinese, with its complicated writing system and the classical writing style, considered Manchu translations, or parallel Manchu versions, of many Chinese documents and literary works as a great help to understanding them. Among them was de Mauriac de Mela, who benefited from the existence of a parallel Manchu text when translating the historical compendium Tungusic. Amit consulted Manchu translations of Chinese works as well, and wrote that the Manchu language would open an easy entrance to penetrate into the labyrinth of Chinese literature of all ages. Study of the Manchu language by Russian sinologists started in the early 18th century, soon after founding of the Russian Orthodox mission in Beijing, to which most of early Russian sinologists were connected. Ilarion Kalinovich Rasukin translated a number of Manchu works, such as the history of Kangxi's conquest of the Korku and Oirat nomads of the Great Tartary, in 5 parts, as well as some legal treatises and a Manchu-Euro-Chinese dictionary. In the late 1830s, Georgy M. Razov translated from the Manchu the history of the Qin Dynasty. A school to train Manchu language translators was started in Irkutsk in the 18th century, and existed for a fairly long period. A European author remarked in 1844 that the transcription of Chinese words in Manchu alphabet, available in the contemporary China Euro-Manchu dictionaries, was more useful for learning the pronunciation of Chinese words than the inconsistent romanizations used at the time by the writers transcribing Chinese words in English or French books. In 1930, the German sinologist Erich Hauer argued forcibly that knowing Manchu allows the scholar to render Manchu personal and place names that have been horribly mutilated by their Chinese transliterations and to know the meanings of the names. He goes on that because the Manchu translations of Chinese classics and fiction were done by experts familiar with their original meaning and with how best to express it in Manchu, for instance, the Manchu translation of the Peian Yun Fu, the language of difficult Chinese novels. Because Manchu is not difficult to learn, it enables the student of sinology to use the Manchu versions of the classics in order to verify the meaning of the Chinese text. Current situation Currently, very few native Manchu speakers remain. In what used to be Manchuria, virtually no one speaks the language, the entire area having been completely Sinicized. As of 2007, the last native speakers of the language were thought to be 18 octogenarian residents of the village of Sanjiazi, Manchu, pound. A Euro-Ma paragraph Lendef, Elan Bu. A Euro-Upkai, Elan Bu, located in Fu County, in Kakihor, Heilongjiang Province. A few speakers also remain in Dawuja village and Aiwai district of Heihe Prefecture. In fact, the modern custodians of the language are actually the Xibe who live near the Ili Valley in Xinjiang and were moved there by the Qianlong Emperor in 1764. Modern Xibe is very close to Manchu, although there are a few slight differences in writing and pronunciation. Xibe is taught as a second language by the Ili Teachers College in the Ili Kazakh Autonomous Prefecture of northern Xinjiang. Occasional television broadcasts in Xibe language are made in Xibe Xibe Autonomous County, and about 1,300 copies of the world's only newspaper in Xibe language, Xibe News, appear twice a week. In recent years, with the help of the governments in Liaoning, Jilin and Heilongjiang, many schools started to have Manchu classes. Various regional governments around China have taken to teaching Manchu in more recent times. It was reported that Heilongjiang University Manchu Language Research Center in No. 74, Zufu Road, Harbin, listed Manchu as an academic major. It is taught there as a tool for reading Qing Dynasty archival documents. The Wall Street Journal reported in 2009 that the language is offered in one university, one public middle school, and a few private schools. There are some groups of Manchu language enthusiasts in Beijing and elsewhere in eastern China who try to revive the language of their ancestors using available dictionaries and textbooks, and even occasional visits to Xibe, where the related Xibe language is spoken natively. There are also other Manchu volunteers in many places of China who freely teach Manchu in the desire to rescue the language. Thousands of non-Manchu speakers have learned the language through these measures. Dialects Beijing dialect of Manchu The Chinese Northern Mandarin dialect spoken in Beijing had a major impact on the phonology of the dialect of Manchu spoken in Beijing, and because Manchu phonology was transcribed into Chinese and European sources based on the Sinified pronunciation of Manchus from Beijing, the original authentic Manchu pronunciation is unknown to scholars. The Manchus of Peking were influenced by the Chinese dialect spoken in the area to the point where pronouncing Manchu sounds was hard for them, and they pronounced Manchu according to Chinese phonetics, whereas the Manchus of Aigan could both pronounce Manchu sounds properly and mimic the sinified pronunciation of Manchus and Peking, because they learned the Pekingese pronunciation from either studying in Peking or from officials sent to Aigan from Beijing, and they could tell them apart, using the Chinese-influenced Pekingese pronunciation when demonstrating that they were better educated or their superior stature in society. Grammar = syntax = Manchu phrases are all head final. This means that the head word of a phrase always falls at the end of the phrase. Thus, adjectives and adjectival phrases always precede the noun they modify, and the arguments to the verb always precede the verb. As a result, Manchu sentence structure is subjector-objector-verb. The grammars of Japanese, Korean, and Turkish bear resemblance to that of Manchu, which would, according to the Altaic hypothesis, be due to a genetic relatedness. Manchu uses a small number of case-marking particles that are similar to those found in Japanese, but also has a separate class of true postpositions. Case markers and postpositions can be used together, as in the following sentence, Betaniyama plus img gene plus he, I that person plus gen with go plus past, I went with that person. In this example, the postposition mg, with, requires its nominal argument to have the genitive case, and so we have the genitive case marker I between the noun niyama and the postposition. Manchu also makes extensive use of converb structures, and has an inventory of converbial suffixes that indicate the relationship between the subordinate verb and the finite verb that follows it. For example, given the following two sentences, Tasagan bu sai chi sai plus k, that woman house abl go out plus past finite, that woman came out of the house. Tasagan hotonda gene plus he, that woman town dat go plus past finite, that woman went to town. These two sentences can be combined into a single sentence using converbs, which will relate the first action to the second. For example, Tasagan bu sai chi sai plus fi, hotonda gene plus he, that woman house abl go out plus past converb, town dat go plus past finite, that woman, having come out of the house, went to town. Tasagan bu sai chi sai plus me, hotonda gene plus he, that woman house abl go out plus imperfect converb, town dat go plus past finite, that woman, coming out of the house, went to town. Tasagan bu sai chi sai plus Xibe, hotonda gene plus he, that woman house abl go out plus concessive converb, town dat go plus past finite, that woman, though she came out of the house, went to town. Manchu cases Manchu has 6 cases, though one of them occurs only occasionally in classical Manchu. The cases are marked by particles that can be written either with the noun to which they apply or separately. The particles do not obey the rule of vowel harmony, yet they are also not truly postpositions. Nominative used for the subject of a sentence, no overt marking, accusative used for the direct object of a sentence, marked by the particle be. Direct objects can sometimes also take the nominative. It is commonly felt that the marked accusative has a definite sense, like using a definite article in English. There are, however, sentences in classical Manchu that use the accusative and the non-subject nominative for different thematic functions. For example, Daba plus Aniyama Suka plus Bigala plus 0 Ara plus Mb, that place plus gen people skin plus acc boot make plus imperfect finite, the people of that place make boots out of skin. In this example, boots and skin are separately marked with the two forms, and they have different thematic relationships to the verb. In other cases, however, it seems the two forms can be used interchangeably. Genitive instrumental used to indicate possession or means by which something is accomplished. It is marked by the particle I or its allomorph ni that is used after a word ending in ng. For instance, apka I sira versus wang ni mu, dative locative used to indicate location, time, place, or indirect object, it is marked by the particle da. In the modern spoken Manchu dialect of the Xibe, this particle is normally used to mark the locative, but not the dative. Ablative used to indicate the origin of an action or the basis for a comparison, it is marked by the particle psi. In the modern spoken Manchu dialect of the Xibe, this particle is used to mark the dative, prolative used to indicate the origin of an action, it is marked by the particle deri. This case is used infrequently in classical Manchu. In the modern spoken Manchu dialect of the Xibe, this particle is used to mark the ablative. Less used cases, initiative used to indicate the starting point of an action suffix deri, terminative used to indicate the ending point of an action suffix talo, inf. Allative used to indicate to a place, to a situation when it is unknown whether the action reaches exactly to the place situation or around near its suffix e, inf. Locative used to indicate at a place, in a situation when it is unknown whether the action happens exactly at the place situation or around near its suffix lo, inf. Ablative used to indicate from a place, from a situation when it is unknown whether the action is really from the exact place situation or around near its suffix tin. Distributive used to indicate every one of something suffix dari, formal used to indicate a simile suffix gs, identical used to indicate that something is the same as something else suffix alioli, orientative used to indicate facing toward, showing only position and tendency, not movement in suffix ru, revertive used to indicate backward, or against. From the root car suffix carco, translative used to indicate change in the quality form of sth suffix re, in accusative used to indicate that the touch of the verb on the object is not surely complete suffix aoye/yo. In addition, there were some suffixes, such as the primarily adjective-forming suffix nganggo, that appear to have originally been case markers, but which had already lost their productivity and become fossilized in certain lexemes by the time of the earliest written records of the Manchu language, for example ᡮᠮᠨ pertaining to rain as an ᡮᠮᠨ sera, derived from Manchu aga. Phonology, written Manchu was close to being called an open syllable language because the only consonant that came regularly at the end of native words was, similar to the situation in Beijing Mandarin, Northeastern Mandarin, Jilu Mandarin and Japanese. This resulted in almost all native words ending in a vowel. In some words, there were vowels that were separated by consonant clusters, as in the words illa and abka. However, in most words, the vowels were separated from one another by only single consonants. This open syllable structure might not have been found in all varieties of spoken Manchu, but it was certainly found in the southern dialect that became the basis for the written language. It is also apparent that the open syllable tendency of the Manchu language had been growing ever stronger for the several hundred years since written records of Manchu were first produced. Consonant clusters that had appeared in older forms, such as abka and abterambi, were gradually simplified, and the words began to be written as aga or aha and aterambi. Consonants equals, Romanized as IA copyright, Romanized as ING copyright, Romanized as IK copyright or IJ copyright, Romanized as IJ copyright, Romanized as IY copyright, II copyright, ISHE copyright, or IKSHE copyright, Romanized as IHE copyright, Romanized as IYE copyright. Manchu has 20 consonants, shown in the table using the usual transcription conventions. The consonant was rare and found mostly in loanwords and onomatopoeia, such as pak-pik. Historically, many ps appear to have occurred in ancient forms of the language. However, they had been changed over time to f. The phoneme was also found mostly in Chinese loanwords and onomatopoeia and there was no Manchu letter to represent it. It was written as a digraph nk using the Manchu letters for n and k. The palatal nasal consonant, e², is usually transcribed with a digraph, ni, and has thus often been considered a phonemic sequencer followed by though work in Tungusic historical linguistics suggests that the Manchu palatal nasal, like Spanish a plus or minus, has a very long history as a single segment. Early Western descriptions of Manchu phonology, particularly those made by speakers of languages such as French, in which the primary contrast between b, and p, d, and t, or g, and k is truly one of presence versus lack of voicing, labeled Manchu b as soft p, Manchu d as soft t, and Manchu g as soft k, whereas Manchu p was hard p, t was hard t, and k was hard k. This suggests that the phonological contrast between the so-called voiced series and the voiceless series in Manchu as it was spoken during the early modern era was actually one of aspiration and or tenseness, as in Mandarin. The of the Manchu language is peculiar in that many speakers habitually affricated it, pronouncing it like ts in some or all contexts. There is scholarly controversy over whether the velar consonants actually existed in two allophonic forms, a forward palatal set and a rearward uvular set, or whether this was merely a carryover in spelling from earlier alphabets. Vowels equals. In this vowel system, the neutral vowels were free to occur in a word with any other vowel or vowels. The lone front vowel never occurred in a word with either of the regular back vowels. The relatively rare vowel transcribed, angstrom, was usually found as a back vowel. However, in some cases, it was found occurring along with a front vowel, e. Much disputation exists over the exact pronunciation of angstrom. Erich Hauer, a German sinologist and Manchurist, proposes that it was pronounced as a front rounded vowel initially, but a back unrounded vowel medially. William Austin suggests that it was a mid-central rounded vowel. The modern Xibe pronounce it identically to u. Loanwords equals. Remarkably, Manchu was able to absorb a large number of non-native sounds into the language from Chinese. There were special symbols used to represent the vowels of Chinese loanwords. These sounds are believed to have been pronounced as such, as they never occurred in native words. Among these, was the symbol for the high unrounded vowel found in words such as sy and siquan. Chinese affricates were also represented with consonant symbols that were only used with loan words such as in the case of zings and sun. In addition to the vocabulary that was borrowed from Chinese, the Manchu language also had a large amount of loan words from other languages such as Mongolian, for example the words moran and tamen. Vowel harmony equals. The vowel harmony found in the Manchu language was traditionally described in terms of the philosophy of the I Ching. Syllables with front vowels were described as being as yin syllables, whereas syllables with back vowels were called yang syllables. The reasoning behind this was that the language had a kind of sound symbolism where front vowels represented feminine objects or ideas and the back vowels represented masculine objects or ideas. As a result, there were a number of word pairs in the language in which changing the vowels also changed the gender of the word. For example, the difference between the words he and ha or and ama was essentially a contrast between the front vowel, e, of the feminine and the back vowel, a, of the masculine counterpart. In popular culture, the Manchu language was spoken in the Korean film War of the Arrows. Rya Sung-young, cast in the role of Jacinta, and Moon Chi-won, who played Choi Ja-in, speak Manchu often in the film. It was also spoken in the film Flying Swords of the Dragon Gate, in which it was called Tatar. In Anthony Trollope's novel The Way We Live Now, the Chinese emperor, who speaks only Manchu, must eat silently at a state dinner given in his honor in London, as nobody at the table is able to interpret Manchu into English, only Manchu into Chinese. Further reading, learning texts of historical interest, Paul Georg von Mahr, paragraph Lendorf. A Manchu Grammar, with analyzed texts. Printed at the American Presbyterian Mission Press. Pages 52. Retrieved March 1, 2012. A. Wali. Translation of the Tsing-Wong-Kimong, a Chinese grammar of the Manchu Tatar language. With introductory notes on Manchu literature. Mission Press. Retrieved March 1, 2012. Thomas Taylor Meadows. Translations from the Manchu, with the original texts, prefaced by an essay on the language. Canton, Press of S. W. Williams, pages 54. http, www.endangeredlanguages.com 120563002. Retrieved February 10, 2012. For readers of Chinese, Liu, Jingxian. Cao, Aping. Cao, Jinchuni Ce Euroshi. Heilongjiang Korean Nationalty Publishing House. ISBN 9787538907650. G. Yong I cubed. Minzu University of China Press. ISBN 9787811089677. Azanjaro, Aingshang. Enowan Publishing House. ISBN 7-80060-008-4. Literature, von Mar Paragraph Lendorf, P.G. Contribute to Royal Asiatic Society of Great Britain and Ireland. China Branch. Essay on Manchu Literature. Journal of the China Branch of the Royal Asiatic Society for the year. Volumes 24-25, €1.45. Retrieved April 24, 2014. Wade, Thomas Francis. Cambridge University Library. A catalogue of the Wade collection of Chinese and Manchu books in the Library of the University of Cambridge. Compiled by Herbert Allen Giles. University Press. Retrieved April 24, 2014. Cambridge University Library. A catalogue of the collection of Chinese and Manchu books given to the University of Cambridge. The University Press. Retrieved April 24, 2014. Great Britain. India Office. Library. Descriptive catalogue of the Chinese, Japanese, and Manchu books. Compiled by James Summers. Printed by order of the Secretary of State for India in Council. Retrieved April 24, 2014. Clapworth, Heinrich Julius. Verzeichnis der Chinesischen und Manchuischen Bauernkurtischer Handschriften der K-Bibliothek zu Berlin. Paris, India Carnegie Druckerl. Retrieved December 30, 2012. References, Gorilova, Lilia M. 2002. Manchu Grammar. Brill Academic Publishers ISBN 90-04-12307-5, Elliott, Mark. Why Study Manchu? Manchu Studies Group. Fletcher, Joseph, Manchu Sources, in Leslie Donald, Colin McCarras and Wang Gungwu, Essays on the Sources for Chinese History, Canberra, ANU Press, Hanisch, Eric. 1961. Manchu Grammatik. Leipzig, Webverlag Currency Die, Hauer, Eric. Why the Sinologue Should Study Manchu. Journal of the North China Branch of the Royal Asiatic Society 61, 156 €164. Lee, Gertrude Rath. Manchu, a textbook for reading documents. Honolulu, Hawaii, University of Hawaii Press. ISBN 0824822064. Mar Paragraph Lendorf, Paul Georg von. 1892. A Manchu Grammar, with Analyzed Texts. Shanghai. Norman, Jerry. 1974. Structure of Side Morphology, Central Asian Journal. Norman, Jerry. 1978. A Concise Manchu Euro-English Lexicon, University of Washington Press, Seattle. Norman, Jerry. 2013. A Comprehensive Manchu Euro-English Dictionary, Harvard University Press, Cambridge ISBN 9780674072138. Ramsey, S. Robert. 1987. The Languages of China. Princeton University Press, Princeton, New Jersey ISBN 0-691-06694-9, Tuliso, Jersey. 2000. JA and registered trademark Zyk Manda 1/4 Col. A JA and registered trademark Zyk Yazjii Orfrakia, Dialogue, Warsaw, 192p. ISBN 83-88238-53-1. Footnotes. External links. Manchu Swadesh Vocabulary List of Basic Words, Abkhaya Euro Unicode Manchu Tau Fonts and Keyboards, Manchu Language Gospel of Mark, Manchu Alphabet and Language at Omniglet, Manchu Test Page, Manchu Euro Chinese Euro English Lexicon, Online Manchu Euro Chinese, Manchu Euro Japanese Lexicon, Manchu Wikibook, Wikisource copy of a Manchu grammar with analyzed texts by P.G. von Mar Paragraph Lendorf, 1892, Anaku Manchu script creator, a dying language, contrast in Manchu vowel systems, lament for a dying language, Manchu word of the day, open source Manqua Euro-English dictionary, Maundyunikarningi Rigisan Ibulkabith, Manchu language. Guide, The Manchu Studies Group, Tawney, Brian. Reading Jagdan's Poetry, An Exploration of Literary Manchu Phonology. AM Thesis, EAF, EUROEA, all XOI, CSHAA 1/2 plus or minus A.